Hello! This is an new episode, another one-off, so this is gonna be, again, kind of long. We have a guest reader. I am Apollo.
I'm Meatloaf.
And this is Quin. Say hi, Quin.
Hello.
He's one of the beta listeners. We just decided to have him on because he's the only person who owned a penis that we knew.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Not sure what, but it means something. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the junk dangling between your legs, the shit God gave you, surely means a lot.
Thanks for making me into a not girl.
So we're gonna be reading an Overwatch fic. Hey Quentin, what do you main in Overwatch? Is it Widowmaker?
McCree.
Oh really?
Zarya.
She's
and,
a wife. Okay. Those last two don't matter. He made McCree, so we decided to read a McCree Hanzo fic because it was the first thing we thought of. It actually took me 10 minutes to find this fic because I knew exactly what one to read. So, as usual, Meatloaf and I will be reading the text parts, but instead of us doing the voices, unfortunately, it's gonna be Quin doing both voices, and hopefully he does not get confused. So this is the fic title is Quite an Encounter by UnclePotoos. And it is rated, I don't know what the fuck the name is, but the rating is explicit. Should we read the tags? No, because you're gonna you get to guess what the
Belly
tags are.
kink.
Yeah.
Boost.
Okay, Quentin, can you read the summary for us?
Lost hunters should be a bit more weary when handsome men and charming cottages offer them food and compliments and steamy looks.
Dot. Okay, there's 7,600 words, so we might as well start.
7,600 words? Did you mean 7,600 fun times?
Okay.
I'm gonna regret this.
You're gonna regret it. This
too.
might be 2 episodes. If it is, sorry. If it is not, great. I'll start. So the forest wasn't that big. At least, not from what the hunter recalled from what he had scooted earlier during the daylight hours. Somehow, though, when he stepped back into the trees after the sun had gone down, it was like he had entered into a labyrinth. He recognized nothing, no landmarks striking him as familiar, no turns of the natural paths leading him in a way he'd gone earlier. It was like the forest had become bewitched. Are you gonna fucking read?
Oh God. On the one hand, that would confirm the townspeople's thoughts that there was something unnatural living in the woods. But on the other, he was likely caught in the trap of whatever this thing was already. He preferred to press on into the woods, not stay in one place for too long. While the townspeople didn't report any foul business occurring, it was better to err on the side of caution when it came to potential magical beings.
One could never tell the intention. While the forest seemed to hold nothing in terms of threats thus far, the hunter began to feel a distinct lack of anything. No creatures of the night rustling about the earth, no haunting cries of the animals he knew should be there. It was like the trees he was wandering weren't real, like someone had constructed these woods for the purpose of trapping one inside, and had forgotten to tailor the illusion fully. It was eerie.
It felt like ages when the hunter saw it, a small cottage, hidden within the trees, only really noticeable via the soft lights it casted from the windows. Coming closer, it looked pleasant, homey. He had no idea if he'd just missed this structure when he'd come through earlier, or if perhaps this was part of the illusion. There was no sense passing over a place like this, regardless of it was good or not.
Okay.
The man couldn't ignore it.
Good job.
No. Thanks, that was tough.
He couldn't quell the nerves he felt when he went and knocked the door. The little voice in his head gruffed at him not to trust it, that this was surely some kind of trap. He figured that, if something in these woods was trying to trap him, it likely already succeeded. If he passed over this charming home, it would likely keep throwing things at him until he eventually gave in to something. Might as well face it as soon as possible.
It wasn't long after the hunter knocked that he saw movement inside. The glass window on the door was textured in a way that didn't allow him to see in clearly, but he could see someone moving towards him inside. The hand jiggled.
The handle.
The handle.
The hand jiggled.
The hand.
You know when your hand jiggles?
Stop.
Okay, go on.
The handle jiggled. A lock clicked, and then the door slowly swung into the house to reveal a dangerously handsome man. His eyes warm and cheekbones sharp. His lips were plump and pink as cherries.
Nice.
Cherries are red. The night robe he was donning doing everything for his small, beefy figure. Oh my god.
We're reading. Keep reading, you good.
It took much more than the hunter was willing to admit not to give the mysterious man many once-overs.
Can I help you, sir?
God, even his voice was lovely. The hunter wasn't normally a weak man by any means, but surely no one could blame him when faced with such a pretty sight.
Pardon the hour, but I seem to have gotten myself dreadfully lost while venturing through these woods. You wouldn't mind pointing me in the direction out of here?
The man looked slightly... Excuse me. The man looked slightly concerned as he shook his head.
Oh.
You're 3 lines in and you already fucked it up.
I'm afraid you have gotten yourself dreadfully to the round. My home is quite deeper than these woods. I don't believe I would be able to very well inform you how to find your way back down. Not in this late of night, at least.
The hunter's shoulders fell at the news, feeling a bit saddened by this, but mostly disappointed in himself. How'd he manage to get himself so hopelessly lost that even someone who seemed to live here wouldn't be able to instruct him out? Of course, that was if the forest wasn't bewitched, but he liked to give the benefit of a doubt.
In any case...
The
man continued.
You are welcome to come in. You're welcome to come in. And the rest of the night. Tomorrow, I can escort you back through the town. It is easier to navigate these woods in the daylight.
The hunter nodded, smiling appreciatively, as the man held open the door for him. Walking in washed the hunter in a luxurious wave of warmth. Extremely welcome after wandering a chilly forest for what had been hours. Had to be hours.
God, dude.
I can't read.
I'm imagining your 3 brain cells doing some fucking cheerleading in there, dude.
I'm literally illiterate.
Your brain cells see these words like cross pauses and they're like, let's try this real fast. What's going on? I don't believe I caught your name, or your reasoning for getting yourself lost on my doorstep.
The man spoke his observation aloud as he eased the hunter's coat off of him. The assistance was unusual, but not unwelcomed by any means. Yeah, 'cause what? Come into my house, I'll grab your coat. Steal your wallet.
Grab that. Delicious coat. Name's McCree.
He stated.
Fuck. I can't tell who this is.
He stated.
What? Are you gonna read?
I'm gonna read. I can't tell who this. I'm not sure.
It's McCree speaking.
People from your town called me and saying that they thought that was something lurking in the woods, something of magical origins. Wanted to get the opinion of a hunter. I was trying to scout the woods this evening,
whether I interject myself first. And well, now I'm here.
Hey, Quentin, can I give you a little tip?
Give me.
See how there's breaks? How the paragraph ends? He keeps speak until paragraph end. Then character change. So now character change, read other character.
That helped me gain a fourth of a brain cell.
Oh, that's more than both of us put together.
A hunter.
The man's words seemed to trail off awkwardly, as if the revelation made him fall into a deep thought.
Do you intend to kill whatever this thing is? I do not see any weapons on you.
Oh no, I ain't one of those types.
McCree was happy to see that the man's front seemed to warm up at his response.
If there's anything out here harming, I got no intention of harming it unless it ain't choice no more.
The man continued to stare at him for a little while, observing and calculating. It felt like McCree'd been put under the microscope suddenly. A soft smile broke out over his face soon enough, and McCree's chest felt warm.
Regardless, it is still foolish to wander into unfamiliar woods with nothing to protect yourself.
The man walked past him, brushing his side in a manner that felt very much intentional, almost flirty.
You never know what might be waiting in the dark for a handsome man like yourself, Hunter.
McCree was left speechless for a moment after the man's suddenly sultry tone. It felt like one of the sexiest threats he'd ever received, and it was immediately followed up by the man walking deeper into his house, his hips swaying gently as he went and teasing McCree with his backside through his nightrobe.
You may call me Hanzo.
The man said as he continued down the hallway.
If you'd like to take a bath, you may do so while I prepare something for you. I can assume you're hungry, no?
You just do that, you barely read anything.
Alright, damn. McCree nodded, certainly not prepared by this level of hospitality.
Oh, why, thank you kindly, Hanzo. That's mighty generous of you.
Thank you kindly, Hanzo.
Stop.
It is no trouble.
Hanzo pulled open a cabinet and began to pull out various soft items, handing them to McCree.
Here, this is a bin on the opposite side of the toilet. You may discard your towel into it once you finish with it. I'll smell it later. You're also free to use this robe.
Which I nut in, if you'd rather sleep in something more comfortable than your current attire, which looks dirty. I cannot compromise it. I cannot promise that it will be a perfect fit, but I'll try to keep various sizes in case of company. I had a stroke as blending both of the voices. I'm sorry.
After handing McCree a few more supplies and explaining how to operate the knobs, Hanzo turned back towards the main area of the house, looking back at the hunter before vanishing behind the corner.
Feel free to call me for... Feel free to call me for me if you need any assistance. I have 2
You only got 3
cells.
brain cells. The less decent part of McCree's mind thought.
I feel like we share an idiot hive mind.
I think we all just have one brain cell that we're all sharing.
We're trying to pass it around, but we keep passing it to the wrong people.
The less decent part of McCree's mind thought of a response that he dared not to voice, not as a gentleman, not as
God.
And not to such a well put together and impressive man. It was clear that whoever this Hanzo was, he was loaded.
While the home was small and its features were minimal, it screamed luxury. Even the bathroom was elegant beyond what McCree was even remotely used to. Various soups, weird settings on the shower nozzle, just that cupboard of multiple sizes of robes was more extravagant than McCree was used to being around. You know, at the saloon. Now that he was bathing in it, scrubbing his body down with a soap that likely cost what he'd normally pay for a small case of bars, and he wasn't someone who skimped on his hygiene.
You know what? I love bathrooms that come with various soups.
I love opening the medicine cabinet and finding, I get a choice between minestrone and chicken noodle. God, one time I walked into a bathroom and I found just hearty corn chowder, and I was just,
I love getting to the bathtub when I'm sick, and it's actually a surprise every time whenever I open the shower curtain and I see just random soups. But one time when I was sick, I got to bathe in a nice warm bathtub soup of chicken noodle soup. It was great.
He didn't even want to think that.
I think we should clarify when we're back to the
No, they have to fucking guess. That's the whole point of the show.
Oh, I'm done.
You either read along or you roll with the punches.
He didn't even want to think what the shampoo cost. It felt wonderful as he massaged it into his scalp, tingling it with the scent of green apple and some herb he couldn't identify by the smell nor read from the bottle on account that it was written in Japanese. It wasn't mint. That was all he knew.
With cilantro.
Stop. Well, he also knew that it felt remarkably refreshed as he washed away all the suds and grim from his person and stepped out of the steamy chamber of the shower.
Did he just admit to using bar soap as shampoo? No, he did not. Never mind. I just thought. I was not paying attention, so while he dried his body off, McCree contemplated what to wear. While he was more than grateful that Hanzo offered him a robe, he was also aware that he was a fairly large man. He was a tad nervous to try on the garment and discover it to be frightfully too small. He didn't, however, want to put his dirty clothing back on again.
He half hoped that Hanzo would offer to wash his garment for him so that he wouldn't have to slip back into them still heavy with dirt from his fruitfulest forest trek the night before. He wasn't about to push it, though. Hanzo was being more than generous enough, and he didn't want to overstay his welcome.
Surprisingly, the robe fit like a dream. It even had a little extra room in the middle. A nice occurrence since Hanzo had mentioned that he would be making him some food. McCree hasn't realized until now that he hadn't eaten much more than half a sandwich that day, and now his belly was growing growly, relentlessly. God, such a whiny bastard.
McCree scratched.
You know when your belly grows after eating half a sandwich?
Yeah, sure.
McCree scratched his... Oh!
I'm sorry, go on.
McCree scratched his stomach unconsciously as he is walked out of the bathroom, feeling worlds more comfortable and at ease. The smell that graced his nose were heavenly. Hanzo was working in the kitchen, unaware of the new presence.
Thanks again for your help, Han.
The man looked up from what he was doing and smiled at McCree, expression warm.
It was my pleasure.
He glanced back down at whatever was on the stove and gave it a few stirs.
I was just about finished. If you'd like to have a seat, the table's over here, next to my dildo collection.
Oh!
McCree took a seat, feeling oddly comfortable sitting in a stranger's home in just a nightrobe and briefs. It probably helped that Hanzo was also in similar attire, and probably also helped more that he was extremely attractive. McCree couldn't help himself but gaze at the man as he worked over the stove, now dishing up things into various bowls.
God, his ass looked nice as the thin fabric pulled around it. Thankfully, McCree was able to pull his thoughts and attentions to something more decent as Hanzo turned around. The hunter would have been mortified if he had been caught staring.
Hanzo carefully walked over with a tray, setting down a set of dishes, all full of foods McCree didn't quite recognize, but all looked and smelled wonderful.
My apologies for taking a bit to finish. The fact that you're being so generous is a blessing. There's no need to apologize.
Hanzo chuckled as he finished. Wait, that was the wrong voice. Wait.
No.
Oh, never mind. Hanzo chuckled as he finished setting the contents of the tray before McCree and then slid into the seat across from him.
He instantly launched into asking McCree questions. You know, like, how long you dick? Many questions, ranging from what his work was like, shitty, where he was from, also shitty, and what he liked about the forest just after a rainfall, you know, the smell of dog shit, and what color a sunset could not do without, you know, the color blue. Curious questions. Sorry? They were curious questions, but good ones. It felt they had been chattering for hours.
As they continued the conversation, McCree dined. He wasn't really sure how much he was eating. He doubted much between all his talking, but he remembered at several points Hanzo getting up and refreshing some dish and that he'd finished. It was all fantastic, and he was still quite hungry, so he deeply appreciated the man being so generous with what he was providing.
As the conversation continued and McCree continued to eat, he felt the once loose belt of his nightrobe begin to bite at his stomach. At first he just tried to slyly loosen a bit, give himself a bit more room, as he was still quite hungry and couldn't have eaten all that much.
It began to bite again, not so long later, as the spell of Hanzo talking about a trip he took some years ago in the mountains allowed McCree a window of just shoveling food into his mouth. For the first time sitting down, McCree glanced down at himself. His eyes blew in shock.
He was a big guy. This he knew. But the way his guts sat bulging and swollen in his lap was nothing he'd ever seen. He looked like he swallowed a bowling ball or 3, or like he was expecting and the due date was a month ago.
Me?
Me? That's your response.
Me after the buffet.
That sounds like me after a buffet, but then you shove all the food into your purse as you leave, and you're like, I'll need this for later. Already over full.
Me. For some bizarre reason, he didn't notice until now how heavy it sat in his lap either. It was impossible to ignore now that he was aware of his gut, a comfortable weight on his thighs.
That's a mood.
It didn't even feel quite real as he brought his hand up and gently pressed against it. The mass felt taut beneath his fingers and gurgled quietly at the pressure.
I don't think that's healthy, if we're being honest. Press into your stomach after eating a bunch, and then like
your stomach is just like, fuck, dude, don't touch
your stomach's just like.
This was real, very undeniably real. His gut sat heavy in his lap, pulling at his robe like he'd stuffed a beach ball full of wet sand beneath it. He could see it, he could feel it, but he didn't feel the least bit more satisfied. Why?
For the first time since stepping into this home in the forest, McCree felt nervous. He set down the chopsticks that had been glued to his fingers ever since given to him. No longer trusting whatever this food was, Hanzo noticed the change in his demeanor immediately, face twisting in concern.
Wait,
stop licking your paw.
Stop yelling at your dog.
It's annoying. It's in my ear.
Question.
Quentin. Throw him into the void.
Stop, he has a limp, that's not funny.
Quentin, question. McCree headcanon, he doesn't even, like, try to pick things up with chopsticks, he just kind of stabs things. He has one in each hand. Just frantically stabbing it. He's trying to stab at the soup, and McCree's Hanzo's kind of just looking at him like, oh, there he goes.
Why would you eat soup with chopsticks in the first place?
He's trying to be polite. He doesn't know what to do.
Hey, he's a good boy.
They're in, like, South Carolina. I doubt he's ever even heard of Japan before.
If we're being honest, yeah.
He probably walked in and be like, huh, what's this Chinese writing? And he's like, it's Japanese. He's like, yeah, they're the same thing.
Just like,
Your dad?
yes.
That's my dad. Don't mention my father. I don't have a good relationship with him. You're bringing up bad memories.
Oh, exposing your dad right here. Why are you crying?
Because...
I'm talking to my dog. Okay, let's read.
Is everything alright, McCree?
The hunter nodded.
I'm doing just fine. I just want to take a break for a moment.
Hanzo smiled, but his eyes still looked calculating.
There's plenty more in the stove for when you would want some more. Surely you must still be hungry.
McCree wasn't sure how much he'd actually eaten, but he knew that all the bowls he had been given were refilled multiple times, and Hanzo didn't skip on portions. Something wasn't right.
It's alright, darling. I think I might be getting kinda full as it is.
This was a lie. As he said this, his guts grumbled loudly. Still feeling hungry for whatever reason, McCree was beginning to fear it may be for magic reasons.
That reminds me of when we went roller skating the other day, and y'all were like, alright, here's this pizza the size of my, like, thumb, you know, and I'm like, 2 slices, you eat, and then you eat them, and then you're just like, I'm still hungry, and everyone else is like, what a nice full meal, and you're like,
That pizza was grease.
You lift up the pizza and half the weight
terrible.
drips off in grease.
I feel that too often. Like I feel terrible when, like, I'm, like, at someone's house and they give me food and, like, everybody else finishes, but, like, you're still kind of hungry, and, like, you finished, like, a while ago, and they're
You're
just sort of,
watching
like,
them eat, and they're
just
like,
well, he's...
I just eat slow, and you're like, I didn't eat fast because I eat fast. I ate fast because I am starving.
I ate fast because in my house, with 5 older siblings, if you didn't eat fast, you didn't eat at all.
If you don't eat fast, God stops you. God, shit, where are we?
Hanzo
grinned at the sound and stood up.
I believe your stomach says otherwise. Let me refresh you.
Hanzo made a grab for some partially finished bowls before McCree could stop him, gliding back over to the stovetop.
Really, I'm fine.
McCree tried to get Hanzo to listen to him, but the man ignored him, obviously, bringing back over 2 bowls of fresh, steaming goodness that smelled divine. As the odor hit his nose and he tried to resist his urges, his gut growled in annoyance and the increased halt of food consumption.
In the end, McCree allowed his belly to win, picking up the chopsticks and eating, although trying to go as slowly as possible.
He tried to lead the conversation to give himself a pass not to eat, but Hanzo was such a wonderful storyteller. He'd even changed his spot to sit diagonal from McCree, now even closer to him as he chattered, a knee knocking against his own knee as he spun tail after tail.
McCree couldn't believe it when he cleaned out the last bowl before him. The belt of his robe strained greatly, the only tell McCree had for how much his gut was swelling. Clearly, Hanzo could see this, yet he ignored it. Or at least didn't call attention to it as he noticed that McCree finished what was before him.
Oh, my apologies. I got lost in my story.
He began to pick up the dishes and place them on the trays they'd been brought over on.
I hope you enjoy sweets. I have some on in the oven if you'd care for a dessert.
This is too real.
It's gonna get...
They got Anpon Man's gonna come out of the oven.
Go fly out and save him? Yeah, okay. Keep reading.
McCree groaned internally. He wasn't personally huge on sweets, but he could feel his body crave them at the thought of them. Like a charm over the food, Hanzo had been slyly getting McCree to stuff himself with.
If it was likely too late to turn back now, the moment McCree brought a decadent bite of meat to his lips and set it on his tongue, he was already screwed. It wouldn't matter now if he refused the dessert, but enjoyable rated with Hanzo, whatever the man actually was. What was anyway?
You sure know how to spoil it, man.
McCree leaned back in his seat, awkwardly shifting his swim maneuvered.
It felt bizarre to press his palms against the taut surface, knowing it was his belt. He'd certainly eaten it too much before and been lost to a food coma where he just laid and stuffed in misery as he groaned and rubbed his abused gut for a few hours.
This, however, was something else. His stomach was startling beeg.
Startle beeg.
It's startling
Oh fuck, Chrome is
filling with
frozen.
bees.
His stomach was startlingly big, and he didn't feel he didn't feel the least bit stuffed or even sated.
Satiated. Oh my god, it does say sated. I am appalled.
Yeah, get out of here.
Chrome is very frozen all of a sudden. Oh.
It did quiver gently as McCree rubbed his hand across it, tender as it was stretched beyond comfortable capacity. Not that he could feel this.
Please keep reading, I can't see.
Fucking stop licking your paw!
Keep reading, I lost the spot of where we were at.
It's a quote,
I hope
it's
this
not
suits
me.
your liking. No, I hope this.
Okay, thank god.
I hope this suits your liking.
McCree had spaced out as he inspected his body and failed to notice Hanzo preparing something in the kitchen until it was right before him. A large bowl of rolls sat before him, still wafting with heat from the oven. It looked dangerously good.
Hanzo sat quite close to him, thigh now pressing against his own, as he looked between the two. McCree's gut rumbled in anticipation, totally inappropriate for the state of how stuffed it was. His hunter instincts told him to resist, but whatever charm was over the food was coaxing him to continue to fall deeper into the trap. At least he was hoping it was a charm at this point, and not the result of his pitiful self-control. It also didn't help that Hanzo had... It also didn't help that Hanzo's hand had somehow made its way to press against McCree's gut, rubbing it soothingly. Ew! That's weird. My dog was licking his gut.
I guess our second guest is Harvey.
Oh my god.
The touch was...
Very nice.
Hanzo's hands were luxuriously warm, and just being touched in general was something McCree hadn't experienced in a while. What a mood. It wasn't a surprise, but his will caved easily, and he began stuffing his face with the pastries. Also a mood.
He keeps licking his stomach. They were divine, hot and buttery, and wonderfully dense. Dense!
You're dense!
Dense. Filled with an odd paste that was unfamiliar to him, but quite delicious.
Beans.
McCree let his self-control be damned as he quickly polished off half a bowl. Partway through his gorging, he felt Hanzo carefully reach over and undo the belt of his robe and readjust it to loosen it to its loosest state. Although that was still fairly tight against him, it was still more room than before.
He managed to slow himself as he made a significantly dent in the offering, trying to call himself enough to break the silence that had fallen between them as he stuffed himself, and Hanzo just watched him feast contently.
Beef.
You don't, son. Isn't...
That is McCree.
Isn't Hanzo
Make
technically...
make eating noises as you say it.
I cannot. You've done, son. I wasn't here.
He looked over at Hanzo, who smirked back at him slyly.
Perhaps.
His
Get
voice,
thick now, boy.
his voice was coy, like someone who knew they'd been caught doing something they shouldn't, but didn't care.
It is possible that I may have taken away your ability to satisfy your hunger for my own amusement.
He sounds like his...
McCree's
Okay. Keep reading.
McCree's eyebrow rose.
You admitting this?
Hanzo just smirked, and then reached over to pick up a pastry himself and hold it to McCree's lips.
How have you liked my cooking?
McCree has no idea what game this man was playing, but he weirdly didn't feel in danger.
It's magical.
He opened his mouth and allowed Hanzo to push half the roll past his lips before he bit down. Hanzo seemed quite satisfied with the response, bringing the other half of Onpon back and beginning to nibble on it. This was the first time this evening McCree saw him eat anything.
I would hope so. I have had too many years of practice to have not yet perfected my recipe.
McCree finished the bite in his mouth, swallowing the gob down before speaking.
How many years would you say?
Hanzo pondered for a moment, chewing slowly on the bite he had.
Several hundred, give or take. I've had time on my hands, so I've taken to cooking quite often to feel it. I
McCree was
halfway through reading that. That's why.
McCree was honestly more surprised to realize that the food itself wasn't charmed than to learn Hanzo's age.
Well, it's damn good if you think you like the peanut honey. I'm sorry. I appreciate the compliment.
He brought the remainder of his half back up to McCree's lips, which the hunter easily accepted.
Speaking of which, you are a hunter. I know earlier that you informed me that you had no intention of hurting whatever was lurking in these woods, but I also don't trust hunters completely. I hope you understand this.
McCree nodded through his bite.
Fuck. I can't tell who this is.
It's Hanzo.
Good. That makes this next part much easier. Now, if I sense that you will still wish to turn on me, I'll have to regretfully roar you. I would hate to have consumed such a handsome man as yourself, but I have persisted for quite a while, and I do not wish anytime soon for my peace to be brought to an end.
Even though McCree had no intention of doing so, he still felt significantly more nervous.
God,
It's still Hanzo, dude.
Thank you. Thankfully, I don't feel any of this. So as long as you don't decide to cross me, we have an opportunity to have a very pleasant evening. That is, if you would like that.
Hanzo grabbed another pastry and fed it to McCree. He had stopped grabbing them himself at this point, submitting himself to the man, spirit, demon, whatever he was, and allowing him to do as he pleased as he spoke.
And what might that be?
McCree
asked behind by.
Hanzo gently rubbed his belly as he thought about his response, the warmth still extremely pleasantly against his taut skin. You have
It's okay. You have a couple of options. Of course you are allowed to leave. However, you will still be trapped in my forest. I doubt that you'd enjoy wandering around in the dark for ages in the state that you are in. I'm sorry. My throat's dry. The moment you leave my home, my hold on you will vanish, and you will feel all of this at once.
He emphasized his point by pressing his once tender fingers hard into the mound that was filling McCree's lap.
The thought of feeling whatever strain his belly was under right now so suddenly was a frightening thought. It's
Or stay here, rest the night, and come to bed. And let me slowly release my hold on you until you are able to comfortably withstand what I have done to you. Or, And this was my favorite idea. You could allow me to have a bit more fun with you.
McCree swallowed thickly, both from anticipation of whatever that meant, and from a large bite of alcohol.
And what's that entail?
Hanzo cocked his head Hanzo cocked his head and his hand slowly drifted down till it was gracing the tops of McCree's thighs, teasing his leg hair.
Oh, all kinds of things. I would greatly enjoy feeding you more. Seeing just how much I can fill you with, I would love if this is written in the text, so I'm gonna read it verbatim. I would love if we could move this little exchange to my quarters. However, maybe allow me to indulge in my handiwork while you lavishly grant me access to your body and let me touch you, kiss you, mark you, feel you, pleasure you.
As Hanzo spoke, his voice began to grow deeper and richer, much like Quentin and his thoughts and words as they were eliciting arousal in himself. To be frank, they were certainly doing things to himself. Thankfully, his swollen gut was trapping his half-hard cock in his thighs, so he had some decency still left in his face. Still left as his face surely heated up. Oh, dude, is it 9 inches?
9 inches of nerd?
Yeah,
Just goes into a full on.
Is he gonna give off an inch of pre-cum?
Stop, you said we can't keep referencing Monster High.
It's happening. That's all we're gonna reference now. Let the man read.
By the way, Apollo, you sound like you're reading this as if you're like newscasting. Like you're reading this such like void of emotion. You're just like telling it how it is.
It's a play-by-play.
Hey.
What?
Ounce of glory.
Hey! Let the man read.
Oh!
That sounds that sounds like it'd be fine by me.
The heat behind Hanzo's expression was intoxicating. Eyes blown, looking quickly between McCree's and his lips as if he was wanting desperately to kiss him. His cheeks were dusted pink with desire, teeth worrying his own lip as he leaned in.
McCree couldn't well lean forward with the obstruction in his lap, so he was happy when Hanzo more than met him halfway and captured his lips. The touch was soft, but lingered, slowly melding his lips against McCree's. It helped soothe his fluttering anxieties, and McCree let his mind blank as Hanzo continued to kiss.
Hanzo's hand pawed at his body as they continued kissing, one hand rubbing soothing circles at his side, the other teasing his bare inner thigh. God, Hanzo knew how to make a man feel good.
When Hanzo eventually pulled away for a moment, McCree felt drunk. It took him a moment to breathe and reorientate himself before he was able to see in front of him. It took him a few blinks to realize what he was looking at, because it wasn't the face he'd been expecting.
The horns were quite new, along with the light grayness of his skin. The red markings were quite nice, and the teeth, those suckers made his dick twitch. Yuck! His eyes, too. It was sad to see the molten caramel gone, but the glowing blue that replaced his entire eyes was quite alluring. His overall look was surely something, definitely intriguing, and unmistakably recognizable.
Damon
was all McCree could manage as he caught his breath.
McCree.
Very good, Hunter.
Hanzo leaned back in and captured his lips again, this time gently biting them as he did.
His hands continued to stroke him, but now McCree was aware, as they were most likely growing in size. The tilt of Hanzo's head against his own was telling, promising to McCree that the demon was slowly growing as he kissed him. It was probably more appropriate to say that he was just releasing his true form, but that was getting into specifics that really didn't matter.
The only thing that did matter was that Hanzo was getting big, and McCree liked the idea of what that could imply.
Them big old feet and toes you could suck on, dog.
Oh.
McCree groaned. Okay, I guess he didn't catch on. McCree groaned as he felt Hanzo's hand, which felt slightly clawed now, slip under his ass and begin to lift him. The movement jostled him, making his belly shift uncomfortably. He held a hand up to it in hopes to steady the mound, finding it felt even bigger than it was not long ago. The sweet rolls likely helped swell it up more, which was likely planned by Hanzo.
God, it was hard to think when such a handsome demon was cradling you in one arm and nibbling on your neck. He wasn't sure when he had abandoned his lips and moved his attention to his jugular. But he didn't care. It just felt wonderful. McCree's belly now rested heavy against Hanzo's chest, which very
nice chest. Which very good bombs.
He tried to move his eyes to anything else, feeling his dick twitch a little too much. For if this was just the beginning of what Hanzo had planned.
Quentin question, is twitchy dick like worm on string? Please answer.
I hear disappointment.
Depends, alright. Twitchy dick. Twitchy dick is not just worm on string, because like when you're...
It doesn't detach and just swivel all around your fingers and your body at the control of somebody else.
No, it doesn't turn into
There's
like...
him. There's the puppet master that cursed my worm on string.
Yeah, that exactly.
Okay.
The puppet master being the prostate.
Moving down the hall to where he was assuming Hanzo's bedroom was, McCree noticed that the demon had, somehow, grabbed the tray full of pastries and brought it along in his other hand. McCree swore it was more empty when he saw it last, yet it looked as if it had been slightly replenished. There was no sense in trying to argue what was really occurring, whether he just remembered wrong or Hanzo magically filled it back up when he wasn't paying attention. Either way, he was sure that they were all going to end up with the rest of them inside him.
Hanzo was surprisingly gentle. For what McCree would have thought an Oni to be intimately... He set McCree down on a mattress with extreme care, setting his now free hand on the dome of McCree's belly and rubbing it slowly, tenderly. He continued to kiss and nibble at McCree's neck, inching his way down the line of it, and settling comfortably on his collarbone. The affection was intoxicating, blurring McCree's thoughts as he hands fumbled for purchase on damn near anything.
They settled comfortably on Hanzo's head, sinking he fingers into his soft hair and pulling it free of the ponytail it was restrained in with little regard. The action prompted a grunt from Hanzo, but nothing more as McCree gently squeezed at the now loose locks.
They remained like this for some time, McCree just lying on the bed, taking in the warm belly rubs and intimate bits easily. It was honestly quite lulling. Lola. The affection in the mattress beneath him, the warm weight of both of his guts and Hanzo's impressively large form on top of him. All this, plus the long night he'd had, were all accumulating and making him quite tired and ready for sleep. His eyes felt closed, letting everything wash over him.
McCree jolted awake with a choked moan as he felt a large and heated hand squeeze at his crotch suddenly. His eyes wild with surprise and sharp arousal, he found Hanzo's, squinting in amusement at his reaction.
You're not falling asleep on me, are you?
McCree glared at him playfully, not mad at all. but a bit annoyed that Hanzo was playing with him so easily.
You know, for as gracious of a host you are, you sure ain't fair to poor fella who's had such a long night.
Hanzo hummed.
Oh, I'm not being bad. Inform me of my crimes, Hunter.
McCree wasn't sure the angle that the demon was playing at, but he was surely trying to do something. He tried to sit up on his elbows, having a bit of difficulty with his belly weighing him down, but he eventually managed.
Well, first coax me in from the cold with a form far too handsome for me to deal with properly. Next, you offer me a shelter, warmth, a shower, a meal, a pretty face to gaze at and speak to. In the midst of all this, you steal away my ability to satisfy myself, while you continue to let me fruitlessly fill myself with things that you have had more time with than I will ever be allowed to perfect. Now you have trapped me in pleasure, making me feel like a dreadful glutton while you touch me and smother me in warmth and comfort. I can hardly call any that fair.
The entire time McCree's listing of Hanzo's crimes, the demon continues to look quite amusing and smug. Maybe even more so now than before.
Don't you give me that look.
McCree snapped with little behind it, laying back down now that the disappointment had been made.
You still haven't lifted your hold of my hunger.
Oh, that reminds me.
Hanzo pulled his hand of McCree's belly, the truest crime.
The truest crime.
And pulled the tray of rolls closer towards his head. It definitely is fuller than before.
I still haven't finished with these yet.
He holds one above McCree's lips, waiting patiently for the man to open his mouth for him. McCree obeys and finds it harder to chew while lying on his back. This goes on for quite some time, McCree taking in pastry after pastry, finding himself chewing less and just swallowing the half-chewed globs as trying to properly process the food in his mouth just gets awkward. Surely his gut's already kind of fucked with what it's going to have to break down. That bowl and a half-chewed anpan won't be able to fuck it up even more.
The whole time, Hanzo's tenderly stroking his belly, whispering sweet nothings to him about how lovely he looks, how well he's doing, how much he loves how obedient McCree is being for him. McCree's almost sad when Hanzo leans down and informs him that he finished the bowl. He looks over and finds this information to be true. The bowl that had previously been overflowing with baked goodness was now barren. The thought, however, of all that dough and paste now being stuffed within him was quite something.
Can I say something real quick?
What?
I just had a terrifying thought. We're gonna be posting these, and there's gonna be at least one person that's here just for this.
What do you mean?
I mean,
there's gotta be at least somebody that's gonna be whacking their jimmies to some of this shit.
hey, that one person beating your meat. Thank you for,
Should we give him some ASMR?
I heard, Quentin, I heard that one person is me, and I was like, oh.
That's what I heard, but then I was like, oh, beating you.
I heard God speak to me. Okay.
Hey, one person beating your meat to this. I appreciate you beating your meat to my voices.
Give us money, sis.
Appreciate
Give
you.
us money, we'll read more of this shit. Beat your meat more to it, but we want your money first.
If you give us money, we'll read it seriously.
No we will not. But
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
not even, there's
I'm
not
just
enough. We have to split it 3 ways. We're not okay, you have to give us 3 times the money you would give one of us. So that we can split it 3 ways. And then tell us. And we will send you the copy privately. While also posting it and crying. What?
Okay, but if there's only 2 characters, then only 2 of us have to read it. Good.
You saying that I'm kicked off?
No.
Damn show.
You're picking me out of a job.
I'm gonna keep. I'm
interesting story.
I'm gonna continue reading. To that one guy beat you meat. Sorry for the intervention.
This one goes out to you.
Let's make this last bit serious for this poor boy or girl or meat beater. All right. As he was lost in thought, Hanzo slyly slid his hand across the soft surface of McCree's thigh and slipped it beneath his nightrobe. His heated fingers grazed the abused skin of McCree's belly for the first time with no obstructions, making the poor man moan with a mixture of pleasure and pain.
He could tell that Hanzo was starting to release his hold on his hunger, letting him begin to feel the actual effects of his feasting. The hunger had comfortably vanished, leaving him feeling finally full and happy. But it also began to feel the slightest bit of overfullness. It wasn't uncomfortable, but the affection towards his gut on top of it, But the affection towards his gut on top of it was, eliciting a collection of sensations that he hadn't been able to feel until now.
It was wild, and it was also doing quite a number to his poor aroused cock that was now curling up against his swelling stomach pitifully.
Curling?
Yeah, it does that.
At some point, Hanzo untied the robe that was barely holding McCree's rope. At some point, Hanzo untied the rope that was barely holding McCree's robe close, letting it slide off him and unveil the fine job he'd done on the hunter. His belly looked as though it had been pumped up like a balloon, large and round and shivery with overstuffing. Hanzo looked immensely pleased with himself as he gently dragged his claws over it, whispering to himself in a language that McCree couldn't understand as he let his eyes graze over his form slowly. He kinda hoped he was saying something filthy, but he had no idea.
Quentin, can you speak Japanese?
No idea.
Can you speak Japanese, Quentin?
3 made-up words, okay?
Whisper in a language that McCree couldn't understand.
Omaisukedo, chai wi. Bah!
Baka.
Can we not? Can we don't?
Watashi wa minikui desu.
Watashi wa minikui desu.
Please. Don't make him say these things. At some point, they started making out again. Short pecks slowly melting into long exchanges. McCree nipping at Hanzo's lips just to get a deep growl from the demon. That resulted in him grinding down against his cock, still trapped against his stomach, and kissing him with more fever. He was easy to tease, but mostly because all McCree wanted was for Hanzo to treat him rougher.
He wanted Hanzo to jostle his overfilled belly. He wanted Hanzo to take his hands and pin them above his head. He wanted to submit, but he put up the slightest fight so that Hanzo would make him submit. Maybe he had a bit of a thing for being caught, which didn't really make sense since he was a hunter himself. But it wasn't like anyone needed to know this.
All that was really important was that he could feel Hanzo's cock rubbing against his own, and he could tell that it was quite big and quite ready for action.
You know.
McCree says between the slightest moments they have between kisses.
Wait, let's make kissy noises. Okay.
It's poor form to tease a man when your cock's as nice as yours, but not yet inside my ass.
Hanzo
Fuck,
brings...
that was tough to react with that all, like, giggling.
This is the hard part, is actually we're like, it's hard to be serious because you can't, it's embarrassing, really.
Not for me.
You sure? Think about that one dude. Hey, one dude, you still beating your shit?
I tried to be
Well, let's,
Hanzo grins at his filthy comment, but McCree can tell how just how much he like it from the way his cock twitches against his belly.
You must be patient. You're already so full. I wouldn't want to give you a stomachache, but giving you my girth too fast.
That's what I read earlier and I cried.
McCree whined, but Hanzo
Hey,
cooed
that's
him.
me!
You didn't start reading.
McCree whined, but Hanzo cooed to him.
Why are we
calmly.
arguing to read this in the first place? This is just as bad. This is like the worst part, to like argue over who should read it.
McCree whined, but Hanzo cooed to him calmly as he began to ease him on his hands and knees. For the first time, McCree's belly wasn't pressing down on him, and he could feel better, and he could better feel just how heavy it was. It really did feel as... Oh my god. It really did feel like he swallowed a couple bowling balls, his gut dangling beneath him and complaining as it was no longer being supported.
Thankfully, Hanzo reached a large hand beneath him and stuck it in the 3 holes of his bowling ball gut. The warm relief was greatly appreciated, even if it was just for a brief moment of Hanzo leaning over McCree and kissing the flesh behind his ear softly before whispering,
I promise you,
"Whisper, boy!"
you may have what you crave soon. Patience, my hunter.
You did not whisper it.
He whined when Hanzo
Oh.
peeled himself off his naked back. But his whine morphed into a groan as he felt a hand slide his briefs down to his knees, grab at his supple-ass cheeks, and pull them aside. A warm kiss sparked at his taint, and then a hot tongue trailed across it, making McCree yelp in surprise at how sharp the pleasure was from that. Okay, because of the way this is like described, I can only imagine McCree being that video of that guy from Wizards of Waverly Place.
What?
That is what I keep imagining, and I'm gonna cry.
What are you imagining?
The dad from Wizards of Waverly Place.
Oh, him, stop. I was like sent those nudes and I hated it. Why? I forgot about them. But
My
you
friend
mentioned
Vinny,
them again.
my friend Vinny sent me one. You know how the theme song goes? It's like da 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 da.
I have
like
it saved.
Oh, please send it to me.
I will.
Yeah, let's keep reading. You know what? I keep laughing because, while we're paused, I keep laughing because, as I said before, I have a friend whose dad looks just like McCree, and I cannot stand the thought of reading this fic any longer as I think of her poor
You're the
father.
one that picked this.
What?
You're the one that picked this.
Yeah. Oh,
Perish.
His spine quivered with stimulation as Hanzo continued to lick and kiss at the spot, even more so when his tongue eventually reached inside. It was like a finger, but so much better, so much more pliable and hot, and seemed to thicken itself the longer it played out in McCree's ass. It also reached deep inside him, shooting a mixture of pleasure and nausea through his gut as the bizarre sensation of something organic wriggling so far inside him.
Just before he thought he wouldn't be able to take any more stimulation, Hanzo withdrew his tongue from him. McCree growled with annoyance, body wanting so badly to climax. But Hanzo soothed him as he blanketed himself over McCree's body and cradled his stomach in his hand. The touch helped him relax, try to get his focus off his cock that was curling and drooling against the underside of his belly, begging for release.
You've been so good for me, my hunter.
Hanzo crooned in his ear as he gently ground against McCree's ass.
Would you like me to fill you even more?
McCree nodded lazily, body just wrecked from the long evening, and ready for Hanzo to claim him and finish him off. His head was swimming with pleasure and want, and was only added to to when the head of Hanzo's dick lined up with the slightly stretched asshole and began to push slowly.
No one could hold it against McCree when he cried out in pleasured relief. While he could feel Hanzo's dick against him, he hadn't been able to look at the thing. He knew it was big, but he didn't realize just how big the thing was. It was massive as it pushed into him, feeling like two could barely press inside him from how full he already was, but yet in a few minutes, Hanzo was able to bottom out. Hanzo.
Yeah, I just noticed that, like...
Hanzo.
I feel like the writer is, like, writing so fucking quick. They're like, I just gotta get it out. Just, like, they're beating their shit and typing with one hand, and they're like, like a hacker. That's
Hanzo.
Hanzo.
Han Solo.
You're gonna keep...
McCree asked for him to wait before moving, needed some time to adjust to how... Oh my god. Needing some time to adjust to just how much cock was inside him. The last thing he wanted right now was for Hanzo to accidentally get him sick. God, he couldn't even remotely believe there was still room inside his body for that much mass.
He brought one of Hanzo's hands up to his belly and began to rub it against himself in small, soothing circles. Hanzo quickly got the memo and began to rub on his own accord, allowing McCree to just soak up the touch. His thumb even managed to sneakily brush up against one of McCree's nibbles, making him choke a little in surprise at his nibble touching. He definitely heard the demon chuckle at his nibbles.
How many nibbles do you guys have?
I have, speaking of nibbles, I have met, like, 3 people with at least 3 nibbles.
They can't beat 4, though.
Don't remind me! Chelsea can't she can't process what she's hearing.
I knew what's happening.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We're just gonna pretend that Quin didn't say that.
I have 4 Why should I be ashamed of my body that I have 4 nipplies?
Isn't that, like, genetic? Doesn't your mom have them or something like that?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about this?
Because it's important. This is on subject. Please mention nibbles.
Body positive. I feel like, dude, this session is gonna be it's 12 a.m. Can we please continue reading?
Alright. Okay.
McCree managed to get out after a good time of stillness.
He's good to move.
That's the wrong person.
No, it is.
It's McCree.
Oh.
Remember what we said about the paragraphs, buddy?
Hey.
Hanzo whispered something to him, but he had no idea what. As soon as Hanzo began to pull out, a low groan slipped out of McCree's lips. His body had only gotten used to such a massive thing inside it that it wasn't prepared for it to move again. It sent shivers and jolts of pleasure streaming wildly up his spine, trying to make sense of what was even happening. All McCree could really do was moan and grip hard at the sheets as Hanzo slowly began to thrust into McCree, all while keeping a firm grip on his hip with one hand and softly cradle the hunter's belly in the other. I did not process any word that I read, so let's just keep going. I'm at that point where my eyes are reading, and my mouth is reading, but my brain is not. It's a self-defense mechanism.
He was thankful that Hanzo had just enough sense about him not to just slam into his backside mercilessly. While that was normally what he wanted, he could barely take the slow and gentle thrusts Hanzo was giving him now. Perhaps the broken mews of pleasure that were dribbling from McCree's mouth were letting Hanzo know that he couldn't really take any more.
It wasn't long before he couldn't keep himself together any longer. With a loud cry, McCree climaxed, cock bursting and squirting jizz hard against the mattress. The spray was hard enough for some to bounce back, up against the swell of his underbelly, splattering it with warm, viscous liquid. Hanzo also stilled inside him as well as he came, grunting roughing in his ear, probably stuck as McCree's body cramped around his cock and trapping him until McCree's climax went down.
His whole cock just bursted open.
It's like toilet splashback, except it's mattress.
Stop!
Keep reading.
McCree's perception of the world went a bit fuzzy for the rest of the sex as he came down and upper body collapsed against the mattresses. Mattress. Singular. He eventually felt Hanzo began thrusting again, but he had no idea how much longer it was until the demon finally finished. He could feel himself fill with hot jizz. Something
nasty,
that's
delicious jizz.
Ow. Something that stirred him back into a more conscious state. Now he was stuck on both ends, and a thought that made him chuckle breathlessly.
When Hanzo began to pull out, McCree whined slightly, not ready yet for that warm cock to pull out of him and make him feel any less completely overstuffed, or less his cum dribble out. Hanzo complied with his greediness, kissing the back on his neck as he reshuffled them so that they were lying against the mattress, spooning. McCree felt so small against Hanzo, even though he felt huge with how swollen his gut was. Hanzo's hand laid on top of his belly, slowly rubbing it.
You were delightfully
Gluttonous,
my little hunter.
Hanzo cooed into his ear.
McCree shivered as the soft voice made his spine tingle. He was far too tired for any more stimulus beyond Hanzo's hard body pressed against his back and his warm hand caressing him tenderly.
Thanks to you and whatever you did to me, to nearly. Thanks to you and whatever you did to get me to nearly eat myself to death.
The demon chuckled, low and husky against his neck.
I may have taken away your ability to feel sated, but I did nothing besides insist on charming words that coax you into feeling yourself with such wonderfully plump state. You are so easy to persuade too, almost felt a bit unfair to lead you on, and such unnecessary excursion to find my cottage. Oh, so it is something to do with me getting lost? Of course, I wasn't exactly going to allow a hunter to wander my woods if I thought that they may be looking to disturb my peace here.
Hanzo pulled McCree in tighter, sighing deeply as he further wrapped himself around the man and speaking with incredibly softness.
It's been quite some time since I found such a calm place to call my own, much less enjoyed company. God. I have no idea how long. You were the first hunter in many years that I haven't had to dispose of. Perhaps I did go a bit overboard in my indulgence of treating you.
McCree wished that he didn't feel so utterly drained as Hanzo spoke. He could feel himself fading fast, sleep reaching for him with greedy fingers, itching to claim him. He'd been hunting for long enough to know when he was being conned by a beast, and this wasn't one of those times. Hanzo sounded so lonely. He couldn't imagine what it was like to be constantly hunted down, targeted, sought after only with the intention of being killed.
You're alright.
McCree slurred, trying to fight off his body's desires to rest for just a bit longer.
I've just had one hell of an evening. Ain't always gotten a chance to dine with a chef who's been working on his stuff longer than I've been a twinkle in someone's eyes. Much less let me gorge myself like I'm dying in the Mohr.
Hanzo hummed, and then pressed a soft kiss to the nape of his neck.
I'm so glad that you found your way into my woods this evening. You should stay with me just a little while longer. Allow me to satisfy myself with you, spoil you some more, to help soothe this lonely demon's desires for companionship, even if it's just for a short while.
McCree fought valiantly, but at this point was too tired to even be able to process this. The words were spoke so smoothly, wrapped his mind of a cozy fog of warmth that left him unable to think. All he could offer in response was a rough grumble, which made Hanzo laugh quietly.
Perhaps we should hold this conversation. Perhaps we should hold the rest of this conversation for the morning. I'll make you breakfast, since you'll surely be hungry once you awake.
McCree wasn't sure if he said anything else, as he felt himself fade into a comfortable slumber quite quickly. The last thing he could sense was a comforter being pulled over the both of them, more soft kisses being pressed against his neck, and Hanzo's hand gently rubbing the swell of his underbelly.
Rest well, my hunter.
Dude.
Final 10.
Think about that massive shit he's taking tomorrow.
Thank you, I was literally about to say, how fat do you think that shit's gonna be?
You thought your butthole was wrecked now.
Jesus Christ. Let's read the notes. Hope you enjoyed. I'm hoping to be able to do more content like this in the future, so feel free to drop me an idea for something.
You're reading the Oh, I thought you were offering it to be on the podcast permanently.
No.
I was gonna say we aren't hiring, but okay.
So feel free to drop me an idea for something if you'd like to maybe see me try something else. If you'd like to find me online, my Tumblr is Smegmagon.
I thought that said Smegmagon.
Smegmagon, the new Pokemon.
Smegmagon.
That says
Samagian.
Samagion.
Smegmagon. Anyways, thanks Quin for being the wonderful and delightful Jesse Shimada.
Woo!
And alright, let's give them the goods. Tell them where they can find us. You can find us at eroticapodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on our Twitter at ESEPODCASTT and our Instagram at ESEPODCAS with 1 T.
Yeah?
Yeah, I guess that's it.
Nice.
Oh god, this
Bye,
file
y'all.
size is huge. Anyways, bye y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye!